Hey guys, I'm here with Melanie Eilidh. She's an INFp. Melanie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Melanie. My real name, I guess, is Melanie Douglas. I go by Melanie Eilidh. I have a small YouTube channel, and yeah, I'm here tonight doing this interview.
But it's still awesome. It's an awesome YouTube channel.
Thank you. Yeah, unedited, rambling at times, but I just put my thoughts out there and try to help people if I can. And yeah.
Well, I think that's amazing. And what really inspires me about you is the fact that you've been through so much adversity
Hmm.
and you have social anxiety, stuff like that. I mean, I can relate to that because
Yeah.
I still have anxiety. It's not always super apparent. I used to have anxiety attacks every day.
Yeah.
Um, so just as introverts in general, I find it very inspiring for someone that has been through so much to open themselves up, especially on YouTube. And I know like this interview is another thing that is, a stepping stone.
Yeah, for sure.
So would you kind of like to, I know this is kind of going into the deep, but would you like to kind of explain? I know you made your video, and actually, guys, you should watch her video. What was it titled? Doing
It's,
something you're afraid of, or
I
what
think it
was
was
it?
Do What Scares You,
Do what
I
scares
believe.
you.
Yeah. Yep.
Would you like to kind of say why you're doing this,
Um,
or do you
I
want
guess just like what I was saying in the video, it's easier when it's not in real time and you can control a lot more things. And I wanted to kind of step out of that controlled medium more and do something like this because there is so much less that you can control. And it was just kind of something I wanted to conquer and tackle as opposed to sort of doing it the other way and posting it whenever I wanted. And, it wasn't live or anything like that. So it's a lot less scary. Like, yeah, you're still putting yourself out there and you're still talking about things and you're still kind of risking, I guess you could get backlash or whatever, but it's not really the same, I guess, as sort of doing it live in real time. This is to me is scarier anyway. So yeah,
well,
so something I wanted to conquer doing.
that's awesome though. I mean, it's good to conquer our fears, and
Yep.
I mean, this certainly isn't something that comes natural to me either.
Yeah.
I've just done this a few times now, a little too much
Just a few
actually.
times.
um,
Yeah.
but even now, like, I mean, things don't always go as planned because it's live, and you
Yeah.
can't control it. But yeah,
Right.
so kind
Yeah.
of going into your childhood and stuff, and just kind of, I mean, this is kind of a question I always ask because I think it's very interesting. Would you like to walk us through your childhood up until adulthood and kind of describe how you've changed and evolved, or like what has been the same and what's been different?
Um, I had a relatively good childhood, I guess, up until I was about 8. And then a lot of things happened in one year. We stayed in the same house from the time I guess I was about 3 till I was 8. So it was pretty stable. And then just financial situations, job losses, everything. We just kept moving and moving and moving after that, usually once or twice a year till I was probably 14. So there was a lot of illness in the family. My mom has mental illness. My grandmother got cancer. My grandfather was senile. There was all these things that kind of happened in that 1 year period. And I was always introverted, but it kind of made me go a lot more into my head after that time. I think a lot of bullying at school and things like that, just everything at once. And I had to move away from home and live with my grandparents for a year because my mom was too unstable to keep me in that. So everything just sort of, I guess it was sort of a cluster of everything together. Kind of, I went very much into my head for quite a while after that, just to kind of deal and cope with it. So
Oh,
I always go back to before I was 8 as being a pretty stable time when I was pretty happy. So it's kind of a time where I can go back and sort of it's kind of like a happy place, I guess, for me. I can do that. So that's good. Draw on that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom's been institutionalized more times than I could probably say through the years. She started having problems, I guess, when she was 18, and then by the time she had me, she'd had 3 mental episodes. So, and then she was relatively stable till I was about 9, and so I didn't really know her as being unstable. So when she flipped over into that, it was something that I was never told about. So it was very confusing, and it's just because my family never talked about it and didn't really know how to tell me. So yeah, it was just a confusing time, I guess, with all of that and just kind of being shuffled away from home and not really knowing why for a while and things like that. Yeah.
Wow. What do you
Yeah.
think kind of helped you kind of cope with that? I know you said that you really became introspective because of that.
Yeah, a lot of writing. I started writing around that time, maybe 9, somewhere between 9 and 11, especially 11 on. I really started to do a lot of writing. And by 14, I was writing a lot of poetry and things to deal with it. So that's something, and drawing a lot too. I drew and wrote a lot of poetry and stuff. It certainly helped. A lot of music, listened to a lot of music, a lot of walking, stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of art and a lot of writing. Yeah.
So, what would you say, or how would you describe kind of being a young, or you were kind of a young parent?
Hmm.
I mean, you weren't super young,
Not
but
super young, but young enough.
yeah, but
Yeah.
early 20s. What was that like, kind of transitioning into being a mother?
It was it was like being thrown from one world into another because I had gotten in with a crowd that wasn't very good when I was about 18. So between about 18 and 21, I was kind of running with this crowd that was kind of wild. And I was very sick when I was pregnant. I had hyperemesis. So I was bedridden. And so I was thrown from that life into another life very, very quickly. And I never returned to the other life. So it took me a while to kind of adjust that in my mind. It was like a very tame life from a very untamed life for a few years. It was a huge shift very quickly. Yeah. So
How would you say like having your son kind of changed you outside of that, like once you got over that hurdle?
it made me just be a lot more of an advocate because I had to be. He's had learning disability and all these different things, and just raising him alone. And his dad was pretty unstable too, so I had to grow up very fast, and I had to learn to advocate pretty fast for things like that, even from when he was in preschool, kindergarten, because he was diagnosed with a learning disability in kindergarten that early. So yeah, it was just a lot of learning very quickly about those things and having to adjust to it the best I could. And wasn't easy, but yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
I mean, I just find your journey like I don't know how you did it. And
I don't really know either, looking back, to be honest, because there was a lot of people that basically told me I wouldn't be able to do it. They basically told me that. So I don't know if I really believe that or not, but looking back now, I'm not sure how I did it either. I just kind of had to just go and do it the best I could. So
wow, that's giving me chills right now. That's giving me chills. How did you become like so resilient to that?
to which, just the
To just
criticism
I
or
mean, well, the criticism and kind of having people just not even kind of dismiss you in
oh,
entirety, or I'm really bad at speaking, so
well, thankfully it wasn't an entirety, but yeah, it was I don't know, it just I do have my faith. I do I've it's been a work in progress. I do try to pray and have faith as much as I can and just realize that people are always going to let me down to a certain extent, but I try to believe that even though we don't always understand what God is doing, in the end, He's not going to let us down like people can. So I guess that's kind of what I would have to go back to when I have been kind of put aside by so many people. That was kind of what centered me, I guess, was that more than anything. And I've struggled with my faith through the years a lot, but I try to come back to that as much as I can. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think, I mean, especially when bad things, for anybody that's like that is religious, no matter what their religion is,
Yeah.
I think in situations where bad things happen, they really start to question, is there actually a God? And why would God
Yeah.
allow this to happen to so many people?
Yeah, those are certainly age-old questions people have for sure.
Yeah.
I've struggled with the whole, not so much the existence of God. I never really questioned that, but just like, why is this particular path happening to me? More than anything, I guess that would be my struggle at times. But yeah, I try not to do that too much because it kind of gets you into bad places. But it's hard not to at times. But yeah.
Yeah. I can definitely understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely did not go through the same things that you did, and but I see so much wisdom in your journey and kind of
Thank you.
transitioning. You're welcome. Transitioning. How kind of take us back to how you discovered you were an INFP and what kind of changed once you realized that, or if anything did change.
Yeah. I guess it was probably a couple years ago. I just sort of took this random personality test, and I was just kind of curious about it because my dad had done one at the employment agency, and he's like, "What does this ISTJ thing mean?" I'm like, "I don't know." So I started, kind of looking that stuff up, and then I ended up doing one, and I was mistyped initially as INFJ. And the more I studied that, the more I just got thinking, I don't think this is really fitting me that much. And I just kind of studied the functions, and then the more I learned about INFP, it just fit me a lot more than INFJ. So then I started, it kind of made sense, like all the things that were going on in my mind, and especially with FI and NE and all that stuff. I think it was very enlightening just to realize just the different ways my mind was working compared to other people's once I was actually typed correctly. So yeah, it was good when I finally figured out what the actual type was.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I wasn't identifying with NIFE very much, but FINE I was identifying with a lot. So yeah, it made a big difference.
Yeah, and I mean, as basically all of us know watching this right now, I mean, that's a very common mistype.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I've heard for sure.
But when you dig into the functions, yeah, they are quite different. So
Hmm.
that's
Yeah,
good. It's always good to have self-awareness.
yeah.
Um, how do you think you kind of became more self-aware, or do you think you kind of always were self-aware?
Um, Yeah, I think I've always been pretty self-aware, but I always struggled with why a lot of people um, seem to be a lot more satisfied with just kind of surface level things more than me. And they used to just kind of get very frustrated when I would try to have a deeper conversation. And I'd actually hear some people say, well, this is boring to me, or I don't understand you, or whatever. And I guess just finding out about the intuitive sensor dynamic, that made a lot of sense to me, that a lot of people are more happy with kind of staying more surface level than other people, and that was a big enlightenment too. So that it's kind of hard sometimes to find people that want to dive deeper sometimes, and that's been quite frustrating in my life at times. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and also, I mean, just to add to that, I mean, I think anybody that I would say INFPs and INFJs kind of go through a similar journey in the sense, especially in school, because they feel kind of like, I mean, I felt really misunderstood. Like, that's the word I always used to associate with myself when I was younger.
People used to always associate that with me. They would say, well, Melanie's just misunderstood. She's not a bad person. She's just misunderstood. That's what I used to hear a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I can totally relate to that. What advice would you give to younger INFPs and, you know, maybe people that are just getting into typology, or, you know, because there are younger INFPs watching that are like 18, 19, maybe even younger than that.
I find that, at least for me, that FI was like almost like a wild animal that I couldn't control for a long time. And it's not like you don't care what anybody thinks, because I don't think that's humanly possible, but it's you certainly don't care to the extent that maybe other types would, I guess, with FI. And I think it's important to kind of, you have to stay authentic to yourself, but not go so far that you're, I don't know, you almost get too rebelistic with it, I guess, because I think that's a tendency of young INFPs. It was for me, like almost like, not that you want to make people angry with you, but you just don't care if you fit into that social norm very much, and it tends to turn people off if you go too far. So I think striking a balance is always hard for INFPs, but when they get older, I think it's easier. I think that's what I would say to younger ones, is try to maybe strike that balance a little bit younger than perhaps I did. Could kind of get on crusades at times with things a little bit. And it is hard sometimes with FI, but yeah.
What's kind of your, I mean, you don't have to maybe share the most, but if you don't feel comfortable, but what would you say is the most rebellious moment, or some of the most rebellious moments that you had when you were younger?
Going back to Sam that I talk about in some of my videos, he was the least likely candidate for someone that I should have been dating according to my family. He was completely different than any type of person that they would have wanted for me. And I knew that he wasn't good for me either, but it was just one of those things where I just went with it, and I ended up getting very hurt. But it was viewed as pretty rebelistic, because he was pretty out there in a lot of ways. So I think that was probably one of the most rebelistic things I did, was kind of take off with this person a couple weeks after we started dating. When I was younger, and move into this boarding house for like a month with this person that was not considered to be very ideal by my family at all. So yeah, not a good move looking back, for sure, but could have done without that one.
So PSA for everybody out there, maybe moving in with someone after a month of knowing them is not
it's not exactly advisable, no. The one and only time I ever moved in with anybody too. So
oh wow.
Yeah. And it didn't go very well. Kind of blew up very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never lived with some, why? Oh, well, I turned my volume off. Stop phone. I thought that you know, I always kind of felt like I was going to do that at some point, like move with someone, but I never did that, or I haven't yet. So there's still time. I could meet someone tomorrow and be like, let's move in.
In a boarding house, no less, and it was like an all-male boarding house, and he had to like sneak me in the back door. I wasn't even supposed to be there, and all these guys walking around upstairs, shared kitchen, shared bathroom. It was very weird experience, but little room, and yeah.
I feel like that's kind of a very dangerous experience too.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a great move, for sure. I was 19 years old and kind of not thinking in love and not thinking straight, that's for sure.
Relatable. Again, I haven't done that, but I
yeah, I wouldn't advise anyone doing that.
I did stupid things though, especially because like It really is true, like the rose-colored glasses.
Yeah. Well, even if you know in your heart that this is really wrong, it's just like, oh, I'm just going to do it anyway. It's like that. Don't do that. Listen
Yeah.
to your gut feeling. Don't ignore it. Because I knew it wasn't good, but I just did it anyway, and which was being 19 and being naive, and you get older and you're like, what? What did I do? Why did I do? Yeah, one of those things. 20 years later, you look back and you're like, I think I was on some kind of drug that I don't remember taking, or I don't know. But
You
yeah.
never know. I mean, that could be another part of the story that you don't know. That would be a very scary part of the story.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it was just me being a little bit crazy.
well, I mean, there is something crazy that happens when people, fall in love, whether
Yeah.
it's love or lust.
Hmm.
Uh, so what was the best moment of your life besides that time before the age of 8? Like what would you say were some of your best moments?
Um, well, definitely one of them would be back there, would be every Friday night. My grandparents used to clean well, my mom worked at a law office, and every Friday night they'd go clean it and they'd take me there with them. And I got to play with the photocopier and play with the stickers and do all kinds of stuff for that 4 hours they were cleaning it, and just turn up the radio and all that. And it was fun. And then afterward, we'd go to either McDonald's or a donut shop, and I'd play Pac-Man against teenagers like 10 years older than me, and I'd usually win against them. So it was interesting. It was like the early 80s, mid 80s, whatever. And I can remember all the crazy hairstyles and the safety pins going up people's legs with the jeans and stuff, just all the
Wait,
crazy
what? What's that?
80s styles. Well, they would cut their jeans and then they'd put these big safety pins up them. That was a style in like 1985 or whatever, 1984, when I
What?
was a little kid. So yeah, so I remember all the big crazy hair and the jeans, and at the donut shop. They were good memories, and they would look for this little kid to come in every Friday night and play Pac-Man against them and kick their butts, which was fun.
That's
So
so
that
funny.
it is. It's a good memory. So yeah, it's one of my best memories, I think, from being a kid. Yeah. And getting accepted into university last year, just getting that acceptance letter, that was a big moment for me. That was definitely one of the biggest moments of being older, for sure, and just moving up here and making that transition into doing that. Yeah.
Would you actually like to talk about your current experience in university
Well,
and kind
right now with the OSAP and the government, it's not fun, but with their new changes, that's been scary the last few days. But yeah, I guess I'd have to go back like 4 years to when I lived in the north the first time. I ended up connecting with this person from the far north that kind of educated me on a lot of the social housing conditions, and how bad things were, things I didn't know about at all living in southern Ontario. And just over a couple years after that, it kind of spurred my interest into economic development for the north, community development for the north, and just trying to help the north diversify their economies and move out of the boom and bust cycles and stuff like that, and kind of keep more people here. So I decided to go to school up here for community development. It's a specialized program. It's the only one in Canada, actually, of its type. So I got
wow.
accepted into that, and I hope to get into maybe some kind of policy analysis eventually, kind of changing policies from the top up. And because the policies obviously dictate what people can do and what they can't do. So that's what I'd like to get into eventually, and sort of try to make life a little bit easier for people up here. There's a lot of addiction, there's a lot of social issues and things that need to be, problems are pretty great. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but try to do what you can. So
Wow. That's so awesome.
my dad's from the north too, so that's part of my family line is from up here too. So that was part of, I guess, my heart of coming up here and trying to change things, the stories he would tell when he was a kid about the things he witnessed here too. So yeah.
What
Yeah.
were some of the things that, were kind of maybe difficult things that your dad witnessed?
He grew up in an alcoholic home. Just there was a lot of denial about our Métis heritage. He knew there was something there from the time he was a small child, but because of colonialism and that, there was just this fear of telling the kids anything. And his grandparents spoke Ojibwa, but they still wouldn't tell the kids anything about the family lines or even teach it to them, so that when they died, the language died with them. And just this whole legacy of kind of shame around admitting that you were Indigenous or Métis or whatever. So when I was older, I did a lot of digging, and I was able to establish our lines, our Métis lines and stuff for my dad. So that was another big moment in both of our lives, was just getting that verified in Ottawa. And some of our ancestors were actually documented, and we were part of this Drummond Island Voyageur line, Métis line, major line in Canada. And just wasn't talked about when he was a kid. Everything was just denial, and a lot of just a lot of denial around colonialism and stuff like that. It was hard for my dad, and domestic abuse and things like that he witnessed and growing up.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a big moment for him when he was finally able to confirm that this was actually in his family, and he suspected it for a long time. So it was emotional for him. Yeah. So I was glad I was able to do that for him. It was a lot of digging, but I ended up doing it, so it was good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is incredible that you were able to do that. I know that
Yeah.
was really meaningful for him
Yeah.
and for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those moments in both our lives for sure.
Yeah. Um, I wanted to see if in the chat, because I haven't really looked at the chat. Um, Let me see if there's any questions. Um, do you guys have any questions for Melanie so far? Oh, INT Paul said she was asking if it was Celtic origin, your username.
Yeah, Scots Gaelic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some things that you guys want to know? Wait, let's see. Okay. Peter Nathan said, Melanie is super intelligent. If she did not say she was an INFP, I would have thought that she was a TJ or TP.
Yeah, I have one subscriber that said at first I thought maybe you were INTJ, and then now that I've heard you for a while, I know you're an INFP, but she said that too. I thought maybe you were INTJ at first.
Well,
I've heard that before.
yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Yeah.
Actually, actually all of the INFPs that I know, they may not appear like this all the time. I
Hmm.
think it's kind of a developed thing as well. But I find INFPs to be very intellectual and
Yeah.
very drawn to kind of the same kind of work that you're drawn to, like actually
Yeah.
doing policy stuff.
Social causes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of people that were involved in like Model UN and stuff were INFPs, and they
Yeah,
were
I can see that.
very well spoken. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me, but I can see how that could be.
Yeah.
But I would take that as a compliment. That's awesome. um, what are your okay? What are your unpopular opinions?
What does that mean exactly?
It's like a Shaham is like asking this question. It's kind of, I'm pretty sure, aren't you 19, Shaham? So she's one of the young people here. She's one of those people that, an INFP that you could give advice to.
Oh.
But it's kind of a more of a trendy thing, I think, between the millennial generation and Generation Z.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like, you'll see it on YouTube. If you type in unpopular opinions, it's kind of where people say unpopular
Things you
opinions.
think that are not very popular with other people? Is
Yeah,
that
for example, like if I was
Okay.
to say I don't like, I mean, which is not the truth, but if I was to say I don't like chocolate cake, but I do,
Okay, I
I do
see.
love chocolate cake, but like let's say I didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What are some
Um,
unpopular opinions that you hold?
I I hate the normal things of being fussed over like most people. I hate going to the salon. I hate getting my nails done. I hate just people touching me that I don't know. And I find that most people find that odd. They're like, "Do you want to have a spa day?" I've heard that. But I'm like, that's not my idea of excitement at all. Is strange people touching me. And it seems to be very unpopular opinion to not enjoy that kind of thing. But I hate people cutting my hair. I hate people touching me. I don't know. That's probably the one that most people find weird about me.
Yeah. I almost wonder if that is like I don't like I feel like that kind of more INFPs are like that
Really? Yeah.
than let's say, certain types. I think for
Introverted
me,
feeling, maybe.
yeah, maybe introverted feeling and maybe like the combination of like
Yeah.
having like SI in your tertiary spot too.
Mm.
I'm not really sure. Could be
Yeah, I
wrong
don't
about that
know. I
because I
just
don't.
know I'm usually like that, and people are. I don't want to say always put off, but they think it's probably a little bit weird, but yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's weird. I personally do like that stuff, but I am
Yeah.
also like kind of a touchy feely person. I'm
Yeah.
not that way with like people that don't want to be touched.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be another thing. Like people that just kind of don't ask to hug you and they just kind of hug you. That's one thing that tends to really like if they ask me first, I'm okay. But if they just do it, I'm like
Yeah. I think
my
it
my
also depends on the person too.
my former cleaning partner was like that, and it's just like ask me, don't just move in and do it. Just give me warning before you do it.
Well, you would really not like one of my old coworkers that I had. So I had a coworker, I won't say his name, but
Yeah.
like my friend Earl knows this person, and so does my friend Nick because we also worked with this person. I mean, he's a nice guy. There's nothing wrong with him, but he is old. He's an older man,
Yeah.
and he like he's probably in his mid 50s or early 50s now. I don't know, but when we were working at Starbucks, he was like. He worked there as well as like a shift supervisor, and he would just hug people all the time, or just like kind of like like when someone, this is kind of a pet peeve of mine. I don't mind
Yeah.
being touched, but like in this situation it gets on my nerves. It's like
Yeah.
when you're walking past someone, especially at work, and there's like enough room between you guys, and then they
Yeah.
have to like touch you on your back. It's like,
Yeah.
don't touch me.
Yeah, it's like there's enough room. Just keep going. Don't touch
Yeah,
me.
but he was all about like hugging people all the time,
Yeah.
like everybody, and most people were uncomfortable with it.
Yeah,
So
I can imagine.
yeah, he wasn't creepy, but like I can see how some people could think that. All right, let's see. Um, Hale Pippack, or Hall Pickpack. Can she expand on FI being a wild animal?
um, I
I don't.
think just hmm?
Oh, I was just gonna
Uh,
say quickly. I think also ISFPs have a streak of rebellion, and then
yeah, I think so. I think it's just yeah, I think it's that balancing out that rebellion, not that we purposely want to make people annoyed with us because it's not the agenda. It's just that we tend to kind of do it without meaning to, and I think we just kind of need to tone down our I I think healthy rebellion is okay. I think it's just when it gets out of control, it becomes that wild animal. I think is the best way I could describe it. We
yeah,
would want to do things that, I don't know, like even with protesting or things like that, I could see us, you know, getting to the point where we'd get so inflamed with our cause that we get arrested or something, just trying to make a point or trying to help a cause or something like that. Things like that, I guess, would be probably examples of maybe more young FI, maybe, I guess.
I like to think of, like, especially younger FI as very passionate.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very passionate. And I mean, I've always looked up to FI. Like, I've always admired it, because even though I still have like a strong sense of FI, I don't value it as much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something that I've always admired. Like, anybody that, like, when I was younger, I didn't know they were FI users, but looking back and knowing their types now, it's like, those were the people, especially like INFPs, ISFPs, like my mom's an ISFP, and I like looked up to her so much growing up.
I think my grandmother was too. I'm not positive, but I think she was. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that was a good answer for why it's kind of like a wild child. Let's see here. Oh my gosh. So Ham said, yeah, I'm 19, a boring one though. No, you're not. But she is, again, she's one of the young people.
Well, at least she's not running off and going to a boarding house with some guy at 19 like I did.
I think she is well, she also has a ton of siblings. So I think, you know, talking with her, I don't know if you've watched her interview, but she kind of took on, and I'm not saying like, you know, you're not necessarily responsible, but like, I think when you're like an older child and you're taking on the role of like, being with so many younger siblings and having to do those things.
Yeah,
and also she was in
can't do those things.
Yes. And also she lived in a, you know, a traditional household in many senses. So
yeah, I did too, but that's why it was so shocking when I But yeah, well, I was an only child though too, so I didn't have that, because my mother had postpartum psychosis after she had me, so it was a huge thing where she had shock treatments and everything else. She was really, really bad and couldn't raise me for like the first year and a half. So they just made a decision just to have me and not put her through the possibility of having that again. So they did want 3 children, but they ended up just with me because of that. So because of how much mental issues she had with it. So I've had to take care of my mom a lot in my life, but not other siblings because I don't have them. So yeah,
I think it just makes a different dynamic. I think with any type, it is interesting, like birth order, and if you're an only child, stuff like that. Let's see. Okay, people are saying that they don't like hands on them either.
Oh good, I'm not the only one.
Oh, wow, there's a lot. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to see if there's any other questions. Oh my gosh, Jeffrey Sherman. Emily's a touchy-feely person. I like that. I mean, I like it. I'm sure you do. I mean, especially if I drink, which I really don't drink very often. Very, you know, once in a blue moon. But because of that, like, I have a very low tolerance to alcohol, and it's very easy for me to get drunk. And when I have been drunk, it's even more extreme. Like, I just don't have any boundaries, and it's scary.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see my cleaning partner drink either. Apparently he used to drink quite a bit, but I never witnessed it. But he was huggy enough when he didn't drink, so I can imagine. It would have been pretty intense. He'd hug me in elevators, which was kind of weird. It's like, we're the only one in the elevator. It's weird. Don't hug me in the elevator.
You know, I am a bit claustrophobic, actually. Yeah. I'm a bit claustrophobic, so that would actually kind of freak me out. This is really weird. I think I've talked about this before, but I'm like claustrophobic, but mostly on my left side.
Oh, yeah, I'm not claustrophobic at all. I just didn't want him hugging me in the elevator. It was weird.
Yeah. Okay, so Brittany S said INFPs are my favorite. I heard Clarence is an INFP or Claris. Yeah, Clarence.
I know what she's talking about.
Oh,
We
okay.
have a joke about Clarence.
Wait, who's that?
Oh, we have this joke about this "Help Me, Clarence" thing from "It's a Wonderful Life." When he's
Oh,
going, "Help me, Clarence," and it's you know Brittany, right? Brittany,
yes, I do.
yeah. Hi, Brittany.
Yeah, hey, Brittany.
Yeah, she said if you just blurt that out in the interview, I would laugh my head off. And I said I wouldn't. It'd be embarrassing.
Oh my
If
gosh.
I got too scared and I just said "Help me, Clarence" in the middle of
That could have been our code word.
yeah,
Okay,
it's our
let's
safe word. "Help me, Clarence."
excuse moi. One woman told me, like, I'd say you're 10 years old, but you're 60. Me, thank you. She said, thank you. What the F? That's funny. Yeah, I get that too. I was always told I was kind of like an older person in a younger person's body.
Yeah, I used to get told that too by my English teacher in grade 9.
Oh my gosh.
Just from the way I would write, she said, you know, I think you're kind of an old soul with how deep you're writing at 14 years old and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. I actually do. I mean, a lot of INFPs seem to be really good at literature. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. What the heck? Stephanie just donated $5. Why did you do that, Stephanie Douglas? What the heck? That's awesome.
For
Wow. She just
for what?
donated on the chat $5 for no
Oh.
reason. That's really crazy. That doesn't happen all the time. I think it's only happened like
Oh wow.
less than 5 times. Wow, that's
Oh
amazing.
wow.
Sorry, that was just really
No,
random.
that's cool.
It is cool. Oh, people are saying, ew. Well, Joe Shabadoo. Ew, elevator hugs are unacceptable.
Especially the bunch of garbage and recycling at your feet when you're cleaning and you're dragging it all down and you're standing there and there's bags everywhere and then they
Ew.
or a Christmas break, I should probably say that. He didn't just randomly hug me in the elevator for no reason. We were having our Christmas break or whatever, but it was just all this garbage everywhere and then he's like
Well,
reaches
I
in
guess
for the
that's
hug.
a little bit more acceptable, but the garbage part is a little bit sketchy. I
Could
mean,
have
not
waited till
sketchy,
we
but
got
just
out
like
of the elevator first and
yes, yes.
yeah.
Um, so I scrolled down and it says Stephanie. Well, Stephanie said for your next coffee. I really appreciate that because as Stephanie had it was so cute. I thought it was so cute. I follow her on Instagram and I think it was today. I kind of get my days mixed up, but she had on her Instagram story, she said elixir of life, and she had, I'm pretty sure, coffee or tea. I'm pretty sure it was coffee. And I'm like, yes. I mean, in my head, I'm like, same. This is
Yeah.
the truth. Because yeah, caffeine does help. So, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yep. I don't drink
Uh,
coffee, but caffeine certainly helps you through the day, that's for sure.
it does, and I can imagine as a parent, it definitely helps even
Yeah.
more.
Oh yeah.
Um, so what are some things that you're really looking forward to in 2019?
One thing next month, I have friends that live off the grid up in Cochrane, which is about 7 hours from here, just because there's so much land up here. And there's so much land in northern Ontario. It's crazy to get anywhere. It takes like sometimes 7, 8 hours to get to the next
Wow.
place. But Cochrane has the oldest winter carnival in Ontario, and I've never been there before. And I'm hoping I can make it up there, depending on the weather, and go to that. And we've been talking online for about 2 years, me and my friend, and we're actually probably going to meet next month in person. because she lives up there. So I'm looking forward to that a lot, and just going into the carnival and going on like a dog sled team. I've never done that before, and maybe ice fishing. And
whoa! Are you kidding? That is so cool.
On the frozen lake, and they have a torchlight parade where everybody has these torches and they march around town. And it's really it looks kind of medieval, but it's really cool. And they said I could take part in that, and I wouldn't have to be from town. So I'm really hoping I can go up and visit her and her husband and take part in that. So
that is like a bucket list item.
Yeah,
it's so amazing. Wow.
Coincides with my reading week here, so I have the week off. So I'm hoping the weather cooperates and I can get up there and do that. Yeah. So that should be awesome to take part in. I love Cochrane. It's one of my favorite places in Ontario. So yeah. Next month.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of neat things in that few days. So
well, I mean, I've been to Canada a couple of times, but I haven't really visited much. I've mostly been kind of at the border of different territories, or provinces. What do you guys call them? I'm sorry.
Provinces.
Provinces.
Provinces and territories.
Really dumb. Really stupid.
We have both.
I probably should know this because I was an international affairs major, but
yeah, they have 75 acres up there off the grid, and I'm really looking forward to seeing their setup. They have like solar and stuff, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to just kind of seeing that in person. I follow her on Instagram and that, and just actually seeing it in person is going to be really neat. Just their lifestyle up there, how simple it is, and they raise all their own food and stuff too, so it's very self-sustaining. They have like a greenhouse that they grow stuff all year round, and it's very cold up there, but they have all their stuff in their greenhouse on their property, and it's very cool. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I hope someday to kind of copy what they're doing, because I'm very interested in that kind of thing. So someday I hope to do that too.
Wow. Yeah, that would be
live out in the bush. Yeah.
I think there's something really exciting about like living away from society in some ways. I don't know if I ever would do that.
Yeah.
But
it's pretty close to town. It's like 20 minutes from town, but
that's like perfect.
They're still out in the bush because of their location. So yeah. Yep.
Well, Brittany S said, "So awesome! You're one cool chick." And then Peter, oh well, Stephanie was saying that she wants to do her next song about Starbucks, and Peter Nathan's like, "No, if you get one from London, Steph." And then Mike Hart said, "Wow, she really is smart. She pronounced." I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, but she pronounced medieval correctly. How did you pronounce it?
Oh, I think I just said medieval, didn't I? I don't know. Is that correct? I don't know.
Maybe that is. I think I pronounced it incorrectly.
I am a history buff, so maybe I'm pronouncing it correctly, hopefully.
That's awesome. Sheila W. said, I love being more self-sustainable. Mm-hmm. We live on 30 acres and raise our own food.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Right on. Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Excuse Ma said, yeah, I think Melanie is really intelligent and nice.
Thank you.
Oh, you guys are so sweet.
I appreciate that.
See, there was nothing to be afraid of, Melanie. Look at you. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, because I'm kind of turning the tables on you right now, but do you have any questions that you've wondered you know, about me, or maybe someone, you know, we could even ask people in the chat questions.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, I mean, take your time. You don't have to
Yeah.
think of something. I can see if other people have any other questions. Oh, ooh, this is a good one while you're thinking.
Okay.
Saham asked, what do you dislike and like about being an INFP, Melanie?
What do I like and dislike? I do like the FINE combination, but at times it does get, I guess I'd have to say it gets overwhelming sometimes. Like I can't imagine, like, well, I guess going back to Brittany for a minute, that leads with any, I've heard before, I can't imagine your mind, because I know mine with second slot any, my mind can be springboarding off everywhere. So I think it's kind of a blessing and a curse at times having that combination. I enjoy it, but sometimes it can be like your mind is just going so fast from just one thing to the next. It's like, slow down. So I like it and dislike it sort of simultaneously at times, I guess. But, yeah.
Kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, because I can be researching something on Wikipedia, and then I can be like 2 hours and 20 pages in because my mind is just going ping, 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 and I'm thinking about everything, and I'm going in, and I'm going in, and I'm digging, I'm like, whoa.
Oh,
it's like my
God.
NE is going crazy. So yeah, it can be a little bit, that can be a wild animal too at times, not just FI, but NE too. A little too control at times. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh my gosh, Brittany has said, my mind is a freak show. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine either. And then Stephanie Douglas said, this is always the nicest chat. And not always. Not, you know, we've had to, as you know, Stephanie, there's been some interesting people in this chat sometimes that we've had to delete things. But yeah, for the most part, people are super nice.
Well, that's good.
And obviously the people, or that one person that dislikes every single one of my videos, that one person that I think has 5 accounts, like I literally think there's one person that like has 5 accounts, because I'll just like refresh a video and it just like automatically has 5 dislikes, and I'm like, that seems
interesting.
Yeah, let's see. Sheila W. My 12-year-old seems like she is very INFP, so any tips on raising a healthy daughter? Something you wish your parents knew about you? Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think I wish that we all knew about functions earlier, because I think it does make a lot of misunderstanding. I have an FE dominant mother and a second slot TE father, so they are very much what the group feels or what the group thinks. And I think that when you're not like that, I think it does create like this whole what the heck kind of dynamic. And I think I kind of wish that we all would have known about it earlier, just to sort of help us out. I think just respecting the child's authenticity, and just kind of making space for that, I think is really important with INFP kids. I think it's just not expecting them to maybe feel like they even need to be completely socially accepted, maybe, and knowing that that might be weird to some people, but to them it's not weird to them. And I think just sort of respecting that would be a big thing, because I know that got me into a lot of issues when I was a kid, is people were just like, this is not the way we do things. And I'd be like, what's your point? I don't care if this is the way we always do things. Like, I can see a better way of doing this. And I don't know, used to get me in trouble. So with people, they just didn't understand that much.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Like it would, I mean, that's kind of the awesome thing that kind of we, you know, everybody that's on or in this community in general, we kind of, wherever we are in our lives, some of us older, some of us younger, knowing the cognitive functions, I think is so helpful. Even again, whatever stage you are, I agree. Just like even knowing, having that knowledge and being able to say, oh, this person's, they're not like bad, or they're not whatever, fill in the blank. They're just different,
Yeah,
and this is why.
because there is a tendency to think of FI dominant people as selfish, and I used to hear that a lot. And I honestly think that very few of us actually are inherently selfish. I don't think that that is our intention at all. And I think that's another thing to remember for younger people, or people that are parents that are raising INFP kids, is that I don't think they're trying to be inherently selfish. I think they're just trying to be authentic to themselves. And I think it's important to kind of make that distinction. That's another thing I would say.
Yeah.
Because I know my mom used to always struggle with saying no, and she couldn't really say no to people that much until she was in her 50s. And I couldn't understand that at all until I learned that she was FE dominant. And then I could understand her more too. So it kind of worked both ways. And she always kind of looked up to me that I could say no so much easier than her. So that it was like we couldn't understand why one of us could and one of us couldn't for a long time until we knew about functions too. So it was interesting that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that is really interesting. I mean, even as someone that, well, I do have extroverted feeling in my secondary function, but
Mm-hmm.
like my Nana is an ESFJ,
Mm-hmm.
and and it isn't just, FE being in her first slot that made this, the way it is, but like I always kind of was like, why is she like this? Like, why does she kind of
Yeah.
change with the people she's around all the time?
Yeah.
And like is just like very much into, she's not always like this, but I mean, I've always admired her in many ways, but I
Yeah.
didn't really understand her um until she actually took the test, and she tested as ESFJ.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked into it, and I was like, wow, this is really accurate.
Yeah, I admire how they can sense the social group. I do, sort of, even with their body language, they can be so comfortable in that space. And I do admire that because I've never been like that,
Yeah.
And I guess that's maybe being a sensor more too, or maybe, I don't know, they're more in touch with the real world. I don't know. But I've always admired how my mom can move into a space and just be comfortable with her body in real time in a way that I can't seem to be very much. So I do admire that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. Something that, yeah, the sensor aspect is something that I didn't really, it's kind of going back to what you said when you were younger, you kind of, because you were intuitive, it was interesting to learn about sensors because it just
Mm-hmm.
shows the difference.
Mm-hmm.
But this is someone new. I do recognize you, Anise. Hi, Anise. I've never seen you on my channel before, but hello. How are you doing? Let's see. Uh, let's. Oh, Andrew actually asked, "What do you think is the root of selfishness?"
The root of selfishness? I think it's probably hurt. I think it's probably being denied a lot of things in life and feeling like the world owes you something, or maybe just getting kind of a distorted view of that. I think that would be a big root of it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And also, I think, some people are just more naturally selfish, and I don't think it's even like, I don't know if it's even out of, it might just also be like more of a psychological thing
Mm.
in some ways. Like, for example, I don't think my sister Anna, she's changed quite a bit, but when she was younger, she was extremely selfish.
Mm.
And she's embraced that. And she's changed, in many ways, but it wasn't something that, like, I don't think it really stirred from anything. She's just always was like that.
Mm.
I think certain types are
It's
a little bit,
interesting. Yeah.
it is interesting.
Yeah, I find that even FI, like, your boundaries can get screwed up, I think, too. Like, even if you care too much about somebody, even if you're FI dominant, you can just keep giving and giving and giving to the person, and you can it can almost turn into an FE situation, really, just because you're identifying with it so much, and you can get screwed up boundaries even with FI with that. So, I mean, we can be very giving people that give way too much too, just if we identify too personally with a thing. So that's another aspect of a FI that can be a little bit of a wild animal too, is how much it wants to give when it identifies with something.
Yeah.
That has to be reeled in and kind of controlled a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and also, kind of FI is associated with selfishness a little bit too, like just in general. And I think it's kind of, you know, even though I kind of always, I mean, growing up, I kind of, now looking back, I did kind of associate like FI users with selfishness. But it's really like, it's more of like what, let's see, it was Mike Hart said, they're not selfish. It's just that, as Michael Pierce says, independence runs hot in their blood. And that's so true. I didn't, it was like, my kind of view on selfishness in like kind of an FI user's way was, and I've said this before, I always saw it as they had their own thing going on. Like, for example, my sister was always able to have her own identity and didn't like compromise her identity, at least outwardly. And she just would not be swayed. And I found that very, because I would just, you know, whatever was the more, like, I would just kind of go with the flow in conversation. I mean, not conversation, but just in general, like, just life in general. And I just didn't.
So when do you think you made that turning point into being more the way you are now? I guess that's a question I could ask you.
Ooh, that's actually
made that shift.
That's a good question. I think that's. Oh, go ahead.
You seem very much of a shift now. So I just wondered how old you were when you sort of started transitioning into that more independent way of thinking.
I was quite a bit older. I mean, I've always been, it's weird because like, I've always been opinionated, and I've always had like, you know, I've always had like a strong sense of, you know, morals, stuff like that. But I just, and I didn't give in to like peer pressure or things like that. But when it came to being like a yes person, and I'm not saying, you know, FI users definitely go through this as well, but I was so much of a yes person, and it wasn't really until I would say college, but even at that, I would say like my junior year or my first senior year of college, because I had 5 years. It was not that long ago. And I still struggle with that, because especially my mom, I think really it was my junior year, and that's when I like made the switch from business to international affairs, which isn't that big of a switch, but it was such a big deal for me at the time.
To assert what you wanted to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because my mom is very controlling in that way, not in a mean way or malicious way. She just like has always seen me, because I'm so much more, I was more moldable in that way, and like kind of, I really looked up to her, like really, really looked up to her, and I just like saw her almost like not a god, but almost like she could do no wrong, and she was right about everything. I just completely looked up to her, and it wasn't until I was able to completely break away from my parents and like the town I grew up in, and started over, and like really had to be independent and live with roommates, stuff like that.
And it shifted the mindset.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. But Stephanie said, the conversation makes me think that my mom might be an INFp. And then she also said, or an ENFP. Let's see. Wow, there's a lot of questions here. Well, just a lot of comments. A lot of comments. Actually, there are a lot of questions. Okay, actually, Anise, since I have not, you know, this is new to me seeing you on this channel. She said, "I'm good, thanks. And you? I'm an INTP. Why do I get ISTP results sometimes, specifically when I'm angry?" That's interesting. ISTP results. I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I think, I mean, they aren't completely off from one another. ISTPs, and I mean, that could be a very common mistype, especially because they both lead with TI.
Yeah.
So
I think maybe just when we're angry, we're not maybe answering things as well as maybe we would if we were calm. Maybe that's why there'd be mistype. I don't know. Maybe we're just, it's the only thing I can think of.
yeah, I mean, when I think about that kind of stuff, I mean, I can think cognitively, but specifically on the tests, because the tests are so, you know, the tests are so flawed in general that, you know, it's so easy to mistype. And like I've said this before, and probably you could do this too, is like, if you had a type in mind that you wanted to be, you could probably go on there and like, I want to be
within reason.
Yeah, like I mean, you can kind of get at least in the ballpark of that type.
2 or 3 types, yeah.
So I would say it's probably, like you said, it just has to do with maybe your mindset at the time.
I think so, yeah. That's what I would think.
Yeah, but they're not too far off, so it wouldn't be that surprising to get that result. No. And I mean, Anise, I don't really know you, well, but, and I'm not saying that you are or you aren't, but maybe consider potentially being an ISTP, because
just study the functions on both and see which ones fit the best.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just such a stereotype that I really want to stamp out that sensors are like lesser than intuitives, because some of the most intelligent people I know are actually ISTPs. So I don't know. That's a really good question, though. Let's see. Michael Stafford, does your mom on rainy day look out and say no, or does she say, "Great, this is awesome weather for reading books"? Oh, that's for Stephanie. Let's see. Sheila W. I have read that INFPs tend to deal with depression more than some other types. Do you agree? If so, what would cause it? I definitely have an answer for this, but you can go first.
Well, I definitely have dealt with a lot of depression in my life, so I've heard other INFPs have dealt with a fair amount of it too, so it could be more, I don't know if it's FI and we just feel like we're more isolated from other people in our subjective. I don't know, that could be part of it. I know I've struggled a lot, and I still go into these waves of depression and I have to dig out of them. Mostly environmental depression just from things I'm dealing with, but yeah, I'm definitely prone to depression for sure. So yeah.
I mean, I would agree with that. I think INFJs also have a tendency, and in many ways, I would say intuitives in general tend to probably fall more on the depressive side. ISTPs also, but I think part of it too is like the FI, especially when you're younger and you're still kind of like we were talking about transitioning, and sometimes your rebellion can also put you into a depression, because especially if it's completely you know, it maybe feels good in the moment, you like, you know, it feels right, but then when you go with that, and you kind of take a step back and you realize that it was really off from what you wanted to do, actually.
FI is always honing itself as you get older, and I think you do that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Sorry. There's a lot of, sorry, there's just so many questions and comments. It's hard to keep up with.
I'm actually very surprised.
Why are you surprised? I knew it was gonna be awesome. I knew it was gonna be awesome. You have to have more confidence in yourself, Melanie. Let's see.
I do in some areas. I just wasn't sure about this.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is okay. This is new territory, and if you guys were not, if you guys either haven't seen her video, or if you did not watch the beginning of the stream, this is kind of a fear that Melanie is conquering right now. And it's, you know, this is a valid fear. This is basically like public speaking, except for you're speaking to people you don't even, like, you can't even see it. It's like strangers on the internet that you don't even know how they're going to respond.
Yeah, you can't control any of the variables, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Brittany S. said, is there a word for the balance between selfishness and selflessness? Both unhealthy extremes. I'm too tribe-oriented. I admire the autonomy that comes with FI Dom mind of INFp. With the FI Dom mind of INFps.
Is there a word for what's in the middle? Is that what she's asking?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a particular word for it. I guess it would just be, the only thing I could think of is just balance. I don't know what that would exactly entail, but I guess just a balance between the tribe and self, and just sort of learning how to not be too far in one direction, maybe.
Yeah.
I guess.
Let me look up a definition right now before I sound really dumb. But a word comes to mind. Okay, well, this isn't completely the right definition, but this is a word that comes to mind, and it doesn't really work for maybe like these two words, but it does in my mind, and that's kind of synergy and kind of like synergizing, or I don't even know if that's a term, but I don't know. But balance is definitely the word too.
I have to invent a word to to define that. I think come up with our own code word for that.
Yeah.
Brittany can think of one and email me what she comes up with, and we'll use it.
Yes, Brittany, do that. Let's see. James Bentley at Anise. I think ISTP has a stereotype of being explosive, temperamentally speaking. Perhaps when you're angry, you tend to focus more on the tangible. Interesting.
Yeah.
That, I think in some ways, again, I'm not saying that Anise is an ISTP, but like ISTPs that I know, they can be very calm, but they have a very temperamental side to them. Or just like, actually, I find ISTPs, and this is like kind of a side note, but I find ISTPs to be some of the most dramatic people there are. Just the whole quadra, like the whole, like, if we're thinking in Myers-Briggs terms, ISTP, INFJ, ENFJ, and ESTP, I think are some of the most dramatic people in general.
ESTP, definitely. I can see that. Yeah. Yeah.
The president of the US is
yeah, that would be my guess for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Treasure Seasons, or Liza, said, I admire INFPs so much. They take on so much burden selflessly. I wish they didn't so much. I agree. Mm-hmm. Treasure Season. Oh, yeah. She already answered INFJ. which I'm going to be doing an interview with her soon. Let's see. Wow, just a lot. Okay. Anise actually asked another question that is interesting. She said, how do you INFp convince others to do what they want? That's interesting.
Yeah, it is, because I'm not sure. I think we're better with the written word with that. At least I am. And maybe that's just because of my social anxiety. Maybe other ones are more eloquent in person. I think I'm better convincing people to do things if I write something out, because I can clearly kind of state what I'm going for, more than in person. At least so far, anyways.
Yeah.
I know I've written some very fired up letters in my time for causes and things like that, and advocacy and things like that, that I probably wouldn't do as well in person. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a completely different style than, like, an INFJ. And I do think people are talking about Enneagrams in the chat as well right now. And I think it does, depend on your specific Enneagram. But I think I don't really associate INFPs as being, like, for the most part, and yeah, there's always kind of bad of each type, but I don't really see them as, not that convincing is manipulating, but I don't really see INFPs that way. And
no, I don't either, really.
I think INFJs can just very naturally be very manipulative. I know that for myself. And I never, I didn't mean to when I was younger. But I know that.
I've never really felt manipulative as much as just trying to get people to understand my side of things. I've never really felt manipulative as such.
Yeah. That was an interesting question, though. Zen Moods just joined the crowd. Hey, people. Hey. Treasure Season says manipulative equals influential. I guess in some ways, it just really depends. Manipulative kind of is kind of a negative word, mostly, but it doesn't always have to be a bad word. Okay. Hall Pip Pack said, Melanie seems very logical. What is her perspective on Socionics' idea that TI is the INFP role function?
I don't know enough about Socionics to really weigh in. Unfortunately, it's not something I've studied too much. So
yeah,
you'd probably know a lot more than me about that question.
Well, I mean, it's basically like kind of INFPs have a stereotype of being illogical or like just not and it isn't true. The role function, obviously that's not something that you're as strong with in socionics terms, because that's not something that is as valued. You're not seeking that as much as, like, for example, she's more so comfortable with using extra thinking. So I don't really consider, TI as being necessarily logical. It is in many ways, but I don't think that's necessarily why INFPs look logical. I think it's just something that comes with developing their type and developing as a person. I think less. Okay, go ahead.
I can be very emotional and very illogical sometimes, almost simultaneously, which can be really weird inside my head too. That's hard to explain, but I can be really emotional for half the day, and then I can snap out of it and just be really logical, and just everything can just sort of make sense, and I can kind of get out of that emotional state. Like it's weird how it can just change so quickly sometimes too.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's typical of other INFPs or whether it's just me and my particular history. I don't know, but I find I can be like that. So
I think it also depends on the situation. So Taylor
yeah.
said, Taylor, who's an ESTP, said, "Why is she at an F? I just showed up, but first reaction is IXTX." I mean, again, I can see that why people would say that, but
Yeah.
experiences that I've had with INFPs are, well, developed INFPs are very similar to the way you act.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I mean, it's different.
Yeah.
You've been through different things, but
Yeah.
as someone, and some of these people weren't like, they were a little bit younger than you, but they were still more developed than, because I think, and it's hard to describe. It's just a different way. And I think when you're in person, you're able to see it more. I don't think things always come across on video. So I have a hard time explaining that. Hey, Taylor. Taylor asked, is she a musician?
Not a good one. I play a little bit of violin, a little bit of piano, a little bit of guitar, but nothing really that well. I do sing and I do write poetry and songs, but I don't play very well.
Well, I would still consider that a musician. Saham said, with NE, I am able to see different sides of a situation / argument. I always question myself and try to see things from the other angle. When I become illogical, it's due to refusing to see past my FI. Wow. How are you 19? I feel like she's so, she's so eloquent. I admire INFPs for this, because I think INFPs are just way more eloquent than, at least as an INFJ. I don't know. Taylor said, do you have any dogs?
No, I have 2 cats. I got one sleeping over here in a ball, and I don't know where the other one is.
James Bentley said, I see TI as being about internal consistency. It's subjective in this pursuit of truth, but still logical. Yeah, that's also very well said. And that's the thing. TI is subjective and TE is objective. So, I mean, I still see TI as logical. I don't know. Like, I mean, I did say, like, I don't really see it. It's hard to explain. I guess I see TE as more logical than TI in some ways.
I do too. I think my dad can be quite, like, he's got second slot TE. And one thing I admire about TE is that it can be so direct. And when I'm talking, I can want to say one thing, but my NE makes me come over here, and it takes me 5 minutes to get back over here. My dad will just say what he means very quickly. And I guess it's just that way of speaking that's very direct. And I'm not like, I admire that. And, even with his emails, they're just so short and to the point, and I'm all over the place, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that's like completely just TE, but because I also think, so for example, Taylor, as an ESTP, I think he can be very direct as well. I think ESTPs have a tendency of, that's kind of a stereotype that they have, but it's a different kind of directness. TI always kind of backtracks, whereas TE is more, I think TE is more like, they don't really have to make excuses. Not saying that TI makes excuses, but they don't really as much backtrack on what they're saying, or like not even backtrack, but like kind of explain it a little bit more.
Just stay in the moment.
They're just kind of like, this is how it is. This is how it is, you know.
Yeah.
Let's see. Treasure Season said, I adore INFPs and tend to want harmony despite their own needs. I desire their own harmony despite everyone else. Forgive me, I have an over-affectionate nature for INFPs. All.
Well, that's good. Always good to hear that, you know, people accept the type.
So do you have anything else you want to discuss before we go? Because I probably should start wrapping up shortly just because INT Paul is on next.
I'll probably think of 50 things after we go, but not at the moment.
We can always talk. I mean, we don't have to do
like
something.
that.
Yeah, we can always talk later and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think not at the moment, I don't think. Unless you do.
I mean, I think we've covered quite a bit of information.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I think it was a successful live stream, and I'm so glad that everybody was here. And there's some really good questions, very interactive. So
no, I appreciate everybody asking. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, I hope you guys have a good night. And obviously, I'm going to be back pretty shortly. But thank you again, Melanie. And if you guys haven't checked out Melanie's channel, definitely check it out and subscribe, because I think she has a lot of valuable insights. I find your voice very soothing. I listen to a lot of videos at work. That's where I mostly listen to your videos, and I just have my headphones and I just listen to what you're saying, and I can just listen to you for a extended period of time. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's nice to hear. Yeah, I go into a lot of things about, I guess, things we didn't cover here in some of my videos about my past and things I've been through and stuff like that. And we would be here probably all night, all of that, but I make videos about it. So yeah.
Yeah. So definitely check her channel out. Again, you should subscribe to her because she's awesome. And I think you did a really great job facing your fears. And so, 2019 is going to be a great year. So,
I hope so.
Well, I hope your son's doing well, and I hope you have a good night.
I hope you do too. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, bye, guys.
Bye.